UI helping him.
Describe your thoughts about what has transpired so far today up at Hallis Hall.
Shocking, because I never expected Matt to go to the podium at 9 a.m. if they would have informed him what their decision was in getting ready to release him. I don't know if it was unfair to Matt or if it was just something that they should have just moved on from and made the announcement, maybe had Ryan or Kevin or George or whomever go up there and tell the press exactly what they're going to do, and let's start business immediately and getting prepared for the decisions they need to make and get ready for San Francisco.
Tom, so as much as that was a surprise too, take us through what you were thinking during the last 30 seconds. We've played the call, and you could tell that, and you were talking about that last play too, that something was off, and it was so frantic, and Joniak painted a great picture on how it was just a shock by both teams. So your brain goes 1,000 miles a minute as you're watching this happen, and Jeff's describing it. What are you thinking in those matters of seconds as the clock is winding down?
The only people that have the right to call a timeout is players on the field and the head coach. And if I have a DJ Moore, a Keenan Allen, a Caleb Williams, I give those guys the right to call a timeout because they're the ones that are listening to the play called in the huddle. They're the ones that are seeing the clock. They're the ones on the field. If there's a chain of command that has to travel a certain distance through time in order to make the timeout, you're wasting valuable seconds right there. So as soon as you saw the way that the play unfolded and there was some uncertainty, boom, timeout. And let's just get everything back in control mentally. Where in a timeout you could call two plays. During a timeout, you could make sure that Coach Hightower has the field goal team set and ready to go right on the sideline. So there's a lot of information that you could have transferred if you would have just given the captains, the leadership, the elder statesman, or the quarterback to call a timeout. I just don't think I know back when we played, Ditka gave the right to certain people on the team to call a timeout. You got a Gary Fensick, you got a McMahon, you got Singletary, you got Walter Paytons. You got to have guys that have played enough football in their life that they understand that, listen, man, we need a timeout to let cooler heads prevail and get everything organized.
Tom, I've seen and heard some people be critical of Caleb not being more decisive to do that. My response was the young man was just coming off of being sacked. He's a rookie. That should be taken out of his hands and should be coming from the sideline at the very least.
Right, exactly. I'm saying that, in my choices of these veterans, he would probably be third in line.
Right.
Because you got DJ, you got Keenan, you have these guys that are on the Mr. Hall of Fame possible careers that have seen every scenario. They're also aware of what the clock is happening on the clock. To me, I just think if you're willing to take, if you're given the responsibility, then take that time out and let the moment settle down for a second.
Meller, wasn't there a bite too where Caleb said that play was taken out of his hands? Like he is instructed to run the play that is called, or like he is not, like Tom was talking about just there, like to your point, Waddle. He is not. He's told not to call the timeout. He's only calling a timeout if instructed to. I believe that's what he said after the game. Is that like in the future? But right now, his job is to do what he's instructed to do.
If
at
that's
this point.
Jared Goff, or if that's if that's Patrick Mahomes,
or, Aaron Rodgers when he was with the Packers, and
like
all
Tom
that.
said, that's an experienced quarterback making that call for his team. That's too much to ask a rookie quarterback who just got his ass sacked.
Surprised. We can call a timeout. We cannot. Surprise, I'm not going to say surprise or not. My job is to go out there and make plays. My job is to get everybody lined up. And that's it, win games. So didn't do that today. I could have gave Rome a maybe a little bit more of a jump ball in that situation instead of maybe trying to throw it over the shoulder or anything like that. But, with that situation, that's not what happened.
Even if he would have completed the pass in a jump ball type of situation, the clock would have run out.
Right.
So it was just a situation that, Caleb is really being a good guy about it. When you see the clock winding down, you understand the length of the route call, then you give a hand signal maybe to lengthen the destination of the route, and then you snap the ball and you're hoping for the best. And here we sit today.
Tom, I know you appreciate the running game as much as anybody. Where has it gone? In the last 2 games, I believe, running backs and a couple wide receiver runs here, 27 carries for just 84 yards.
There's no double threat. You do a good job of the outside zone plays, and DeAndre Swift, Roschon, and the crew, they do a nice job of reading, and the offensive line, tight ends, and receivers do a nice job of sustaining legal blocks to get some yards out of that specific area of the field. But in the NFL, 74% of the time, the point of attack is in between the inside shoulder of the right tackle and the inside shoulder of the left tackle. If you don't some way, shape, or form have a bread and butter play, you can have a go-to play that under any circumstances, you can run that play for 4 yards. And to me, that's what's escaped the interior running game of these guys so far, is they don't have that badass double team that wins that line of scrimmage, pushes that guy out of position, gets up to the second level, and that running back knows that if he's committed to that point of attack, that they're going to give him 3, but he's got to get 1, 1.5, 2, and whatever after on his own. And listen, Matt, I could slant 45. It's a play that I ran probably 1,000 times in my life, and it was a go-to play. And no matter what the circumstances were, if we are facing a 6-man front to an 8-man front, we knew that we are always going to earn that point of attack, and it was going to go for yards because of the way Walter would finish the play. But so, guys, when you're talking about interior running game, that's, majority of the time, that's where you should have a developed point of attack.
Let's talk big picture with Tom Thayer, who is brought to you by UI Health, exceptional care for you. Visit uihealth.care. How was that, Tom?
It was decent. Every time I read that commercial during the game, I always point to Jeff and I go, hey, that's me.
That's awesome. That's great.
For the fun.
So, look, Thomas Brown takes over on an interim basis. 5 weeks ago, as I mentioned, I don't even think that he had a direct line of communication with Caleb Williams because they wanted to have just a couple of people directly speak to Caleb. It was Waldron, and I believe it was the quarterback's coach. He was the passing game coordinator, and he would run things, I think, their Saturday walkthrough and stuff like that. But now he goes from that to calling plays as the OC to now the interim head coach in just a matter of 5 weeks. How much of a chance would you give him to earn the job for next year based on what he does in these final games?
I would give him every chance to continue and develop this relationship with Caleb Williams because of guys, as many as dysfunctional coaching staffs as we've seen in the last 20 years, this is the most confident that I've ever felt about the coach-quarterback relationship. And if you want to go back to Andy Reid or any of the great relationships throughout NFL time and history, it's that relationship that can bring success to the whole team and organization. So I'm going to give him every chance in the world to be successful and to be the guy that he's been preparing to be his entire coaching life. And only because he's got such a short time on task, I think that, he's been given a great opportunity to prove to everybody that he can control the room because he's not only now standing in front of the offense and talking to the offense's group, he's in front of the team and he's talking to the defensive players as much as he's talking to the offensive players. And what I've heard out of him from the podium is a really gifted voice that it comes out what he says on Sunday. Now, if that voice can transfer and get into the heads of the defensive players and make them understand how important their performance is to how this team can finish the season, along with Eric Washington, the defensive coordinator, who I think is a guy that's grown up throughout the NFL, is a super well-spoken guy himself. But to me, my sole goal from here on out is to make sure Caleb Williams finishes the season as confident as you can possibly finish a season after some of the trials that they've already gone through in his rookie year.
Tom, is this asking Thomas Brown to do too much, though? I mean, my assumption would be he's coming out of the box, coach's box, and he'll be on the field. And not only is he responsible for getting Caleb going in the offensive play calling, but now he's going to be in charge of overall operational issues. Is that too much?
You know, T. Waddle, I'm going to limit that type of stuff. I'm going to make Hightower do the special teams. I'm going to make Eric Washington do the defense. And then Thomas Brown, he can address the team on Wednesday morning when they get things going, but he is going to be in charge of the offense. So as much as I'm counting on him, taking over for the remainder of the season, I'm not going to ask him to unrealistically do things that are time wasters to him. I'm going to have him continuously focus on getting the offense in the best position possible to succeed, make sure that he has access to the development of Caleb Williams, and have those other coaches maybe increase their responsibilities. So whatever it is that you can take off of the shelf for the head coach and Thomas Brown, then I'm going to do that, and I'm going to rely on other guys to increase their responsibilities.
Do you think it'll be a negative for him, though, to come from the booth down to the field with regard to the play calling responsibilities? It's obviously a different view.
That's my only concern, T. Waddle, is coming out of the booth, because, when you go to Detroit and you go from that viewing box, you're sitting above the field and you're seeing all 22. And it's a great view because you're so high up there. When you're in Chicago's coaching box, it's a lower view, and you really don't have a good field view from the opposite side of the center, no matter what direction you're going. Now, when you're on the field, you kind of got to position yourself accordingly. Do you like to stand in front of the offense so you can see them coming at you, or do you like to stand behind the offense so you can see them going away? And so now he's going to have to figure that out exactly and make sure that he has good communication from the field to the quarterback, and then any adjustments he has to make. They're blessed nowadays with that tablet, and he can look at pictures, he can have someone standing right there next to him, and there's a lot of different ways that he can, take everything into his mind before he takes that limited amount of time he'll have to talk to Caleb in between series.
Tom, is this the craziest season that you've had in the booth?
I believe so. Last year when, they lost the running backs coach, they lost the defensive coordinator, and then Matt came aboard as the defensive coordinator, and he did a lot of really good things. And then they fire Getsy in the offseason, and then they bring along a new offensive coordinator, quarterbacks coach, and then they get rid of Waldron. So, yeah, it's been a crazy 2 years, no doubt about it, so – yeah, it's been a crazy 2 years, but this is a crazy year as well. But then there's always the light at the end of the tunnel, or the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, and that's Caleb. So let's not ruin this. Let's develop it, and let's turn it in to the division-winning asset he can ultimately be.
That's what I've called him, Tom, is that pot of gold. Like, you've been gifted this pot of gold. You must take care of this. And you must develop this.
Draft some offensive linemen and get your running game going to support your pot of gold.
Yes.
Well, you said it, Tom. You got to draft offensive linemen.
Yeah.
And you got to bring some offensive linemen here with a young man like Caleb, and you got to bring these guys aboard and some real badasses. Like, I'm watching the Raiders game, and they have a rookie center in that came from Oregon, and the dude is legit. And then you look at the center for the Kansas City Chiefs that came in and started as a rookie. Coming in with Jimbo Covert and stuff. So it is possible, and, that's what they have to set their sights on.
Great stuff today, all day today, Tom. We appreciate